Hi there. So in this video, we're gonna go ahead and create a application. And this application is called the Lyrics Finder app. So this app basically has one layout, okay? And here at the top, we are going to ask the user to enter the artist name. And then we are going to ask the user to enter the song name, okay? Song name. And then here we will put a button so that the user can get the lyrics of the song from that artist. And then here at the bottom, we are going to have a text view that will essentially include the lyric of that song, okay? So this is how our application works. So here, as you might already know, we need two edit texts, a button and a text view. Our application is going to connect to the internet. So that's why we need to have a reliable internet connection for this application. So internet is required. And then we need to ask the user the permission to connect to the internet in the Android manifest file, okay? Android manifest file, we need to put the permission for internet, and we are going to use the Volley library for this application. So we're going to get the dependency code from the GitHub or from the developer.android.com that has a very descriptive documentation about the Volley library. So it will simplify the task of connecting to the internet and accessing the JSON data. And we are going to also deal with JSON data. So let's learn all about these concepts in Android in this video. So let's create a new Android Studio project together. Just click on Start a new Android Studio project. And I don't know why Android Studio keeps changing the order of selecting the templates and specifying the minimum SDK over and over again in its new versions. For example, in the older versions, we had to first specify a name, the minimum SDK, and then we were required to select a template. But now in the newest version, we must select the template, and then we need to go ahead and give our application a name. So here, let's choose the phone and tablet, empty activity, next. So the application name is going to be the Lyrics Finder. So let me grab my keyboard. Okay, so the Lyrics Finder app. This is going to be a very fun app, and you might later want to add a media player so that the user can select the song that is related to that lyrics within the application. So the package name, a reverse name, the save location path, and the language is Java. API minimum SDK is API 16. So in this way, we are targeting around 100% of the devices, 99.8% of devices that are live in Google Play. So let's click on Finish. So now that the project is created and it's ready, I'm going to go ahead and increase the font size so that you can see better what's going on here. So now I'm going to go to File, and then I'm going to go ahead and click on Settings. If you're using Mac, you need to click on Android Studio at the top and then go to Preferences. So now I'm going to go to Appearance, and here the font size, the current font size is 12. So I'm gonna use a custom font, and I'm gonna increase the font size. So make sure that the use custom font is checked on. So now I'm gonna choose a 24 and click on Apply. So I think it's now more visible to the user. So I want the font size of the code to increase also, but I think if I double click on the tab here, it's now more visible. So let me go to File again, Settings, So let me go to editor and go to font. Okay, so here I can increase the font size. So currently the font size is 20. I'm gonna change it to 24 and then click on apply. Okay, and now I'm gonna decrease the font size here from 24 to 20. Let's change the size of the appearance to from 20 to, let's say, 16. Okay, and then click on OK. So now the font size of the IDE as well as the code is more visible and better. So now let's go ahead and design the layout together. Open the project navigator, go to app, res, layout, activity underline main.xml. So here let me double click on this tab in order to make this area wider. Here it is our layout. We have a constraint layout at the top level, and we have a text view, the hello world as usual, as the child of this constraint layout. So I'm gonna remove this hello world here, and our layout is going to contain a scroll view. So now inside this palette section here, you can see that I have this palette section, and if I click on this search icon, I can now search for scroll, and now I want to select this scroll view and put it inside this constraint layout inside the component tree section. Or alternatively, I can put it inside the layout here, the design, and I can release it here. So now the scroll view is a child of this constraint layout. So because this is a constraint layout, we need to create constraints for our scroll view. When you select the scroll view from the component tree section, at the right side we have the attributes section. Okay, so if I can minimize the attributes section, or at the right side I can click on attributes to open it. And now you can see that we have constraint widget, this area where I can create the constraints for my scroll view. So constraints is just like attaching something to something else. Okay, so now I want to attach the top edge of this scroll view to the top edge of the constraint layout, which is the parent layout. So you can see that inside this constraint widget, we have this plus sign. I'm gonna create top constraint. If I click on it, now the constraint is created. Now inside the layout, you can see this blue circle here that is filled with blue color. But for the right, left, and the bottom constraints, these circles are not filled with blue color. They are empty. So now I'm gonna create what? A right constraint. Create right constraint. Now this circle is filled with blue color, left constraint, and bottom constraint. Now the scroll view is attached to the top, left, bottom, and right. And it is taking the whole screen. So inside the component tree section, when I added the scroll view to the constraint layout, you can see that there is a little triangle pointing to this scroll view. This means I can open this scroll view, and now there is a linear layout that its orientation is vertical. You'll learn more about orientation, vertical and horizontal later. For now, know that a linear layout that is vertical is going to position the items inside of it vertically. For example, we have an item at the top, another item at the bottom, below it, another one below it, and so on. So now that we have this layout ready for us, we are going to need an edit text so that the user can enter the artist name, okay, the singer name. Inside the palette section, I'm gonna click on this search icon and search for edit text. Okay, so when I type in edit text, it is showing a whole bunch of edit texts. An edit text for plain text, an edit text for password, email, phone, postal address. time, date, number, and so on. I can also add an edit text inside the XML file. Remember, we use the XML file to create UI for our Android apps. So here at the top right, we have these three icons. The middle one is the split. Okay, whatever XML code you put here will be reflected here on the layout, and whatever layout items you add here, its code will be added to the XML file. So for example, we added the scroll view in the design. We also added the constraints. So you can see these attributes here, right? The constraint to the bottom of parent, to the end of parent, to the start of, to the top of. To end means to the right, okay? And to the start of means to the left. That's because of the existence of the right to left languages. And then we have the linear layout here. As you can see, that is the child of this scroll view, and its orientation is vertical. So let me go back to the design view, and now I'm gonna drag this plain text, and I'm gonna just drag it into the component tree, because here I can be more specific where I want to drop this UI component. I'm gonna drop this UI component inside the linear layout. So I'm gonna just bring it here, and I'm gonna release it inside this linear layout. That's why you can see this linear layout is highlighted. I'm gonna release it here. Okay, now an edit text is added here to the top. Okay, fine. So first let me tell you that if you select the scroll view from the component tree section, you can see that the layout width and the layout height these attributes are hard coded, and it's DP. You don't have to worry about these values here, because the scroll view is attached to the edges of the screen. Okay, so now let's go back to the edit text, and let's give this edit text an ID so we can refer to it and connect to it via the Java code. So I'm gonna give it the ID EDT artist name, and then press on enter key to submit this value. Next, let's give this edit text a hint attribute. A hint is a way to let the user know what the user is expected to enter into the text field. So first, let me remove the text attribute here, this name, so you can see this text attribute. If you can't find it inside the search icon, just click on it and search for text, and it will show you the text attribute. I'm gonna remove this value, and instead I'm gonna search for the hint attribute. So I'm gonna give it the hint, please enter the artist name ... So here it is, the hint attribute. Okay, so when I run the program, I can show you that this is just a hint, and this is not a real text. So when the user starts entering a text here, the hint disappears. Okay, just like the real world applications out there. So until the emulator loads, let's go ahead and add the other edit text. I'm gonna search for edit text here, and I'm gonna select the plain text. Again, I'm gonna put it here below this EDT artist name inside the linear layout vertical. Okay, so now let me select this edit text, and first let me give this an ID. This is going to be EDT song name. EDT song name. Okay, and then press on enter key on your keyboard. Make sure that when you assign an ID for your UI components, make sure that the correct UI component is selected. Okay, for example here, make sure that the EDT song name, this edit text, is selected, and then enter the ID, the EDT song name. Okay, so now let's search for the text attribute, text, and remove this name value here, and then let me search for the hint attribute, and for the hint you can just enter this value, please enter the song name ... Okay, So here it is how you define a text, a hint attribute for your edit text. So let me open the Lyrics Finder app on the emulator. So it is still loading. Okay, let's go back here. Now we need a button. So from this palette section, I'm gonna select this button, or you can search for it and bring it here below this edit song name inside the linear layout vertical. So for the ID here, I'm gonna give it the ID btn get lyrics, and for the text attribute, I can give it the text give me the lyrics, give me the lyrics, or lyrics of this song, give me the lyrics of this song. Okay, and now we need a text view that will display the actual lyrics. So I'm gonna just select this text view and bring it here. Just you can put it here inside the design layout, but if you want to be more exact and more precise, I can bring it here, just put it below this btn get lyrics inside the linear layout. And now here it is, the text view. So let's give it an ID. I'm gonna give it the ID txt lyrics. Okay, and the layout width is match parent. The layout height is wrap content. So wrap content is fine, okay, but I want this alignment of the text inside of the text view to be centered horizontally. So I'm gonna search, so just click on this search icon and search for the gravity attribute, and then open the gravity and select this checkbox of the center horizontal to be true. Now the text inside of this text view is centered horizontally. And let me close this search here, and I'm gonna search for text size. And I'm gonna increase the size to, let's say, 24 sp. Okay, and I wanna change the text color. So when you enter a text size for your text view, make sure to press an enter key on your keyboard to submit this value. And notice that for the text size we use SP. We always use SP for the size of the texts, okay, whether it is for the button or the text view. And DP is used for the let's say layout width, layout height, the padding attribute, the margin attribute. So the padding attribute is for the space within the boundaries of a layout, and the margin attribute is the space or distance outside the boundary of a layout. You're gonna learn more about this later, don't worry. So let me close this search, and I'm gonna search for the text color. So for the text color, I'm gonna just click on here, and I'm gonna you can see that at the left here, if I double click here, it might be black. Okay, for example, the text color might be black, and if I double click here, it's gonna open this new dialog or window that will allow me to select a color. Or you can select an RGB color. You can go to Google and search for RGB colors and get the hexadecimal code. The hexadecimal code is a 6 to 8 digits code that starts with a hashtag that will allow you to select a color for your items. So here I'm gonna select this color, orange, for my text color, and that's fine. So I'm gonna remove the text attribute here. Okay, I'm gonna remove this value, and that's it. So now we have some warnings inside the componentry section. You can see that I have some warnings, and this warning says that I have used a hard-coded string for let's say for the hint attribute or for the button text. So it's important that you use the string resources in order to create strings for your apps, because later if you want to translate your application to other languages, you cannot do that by the use of the hard-coded strings. You need to use the string resources file. So let's go ahead and learn about that. So first, I'm gonna test my application on the UI. So let me run the application again and see what happens. So here it is, the result, but it is not what I expected. Okay, there is something wrong with the layout. So let's go back, and now we need to debug the UI. Our UI is buggy. That's why you can see that the UI is distorted and we cannot see some of these items. So let's go here, and let me click on this scroll view. You can see that the layout width and the layout height, both of these attributes are hard-coded. So I don't like the hard-coded values for my layouts because it's against the concept of dynamic views in Android. So I'm gonna change the layout width because I want the scroll view to take the entire width of the parent layout, which is the constraint layout. So let me click on this drop-down menu and select the match constraint, the 0dp match constraint. And also for the layout height, again, drop-down menu, 0dp match constraints. Okay, so now it's good. Now you can see that the button is at the top and the song name is below it and the artist name is at the bottom here. So the order is messed up. So now I'm gonna bring the button inside the componentry section and bring it here below this artist name. And then I'm gonna select this artist name and drag it here above the edited song name here. So now the order is fine. Let me run the program and see the result now. So it might take some time to run the application according, it's dependent on the speed of your computer most of the times, especially the RAM of your computer. So now the artist name is here, below it is the song name, and then the button get me the lyrics of this song. So everything is fine, and below this button is the txt lyrics that is currently invisible because there is no lyrics now. So if I select this edit text or this one, I can enter a value and then click on this button. So that's fine so far. Now we need to go ahead and integrate the Volley library into our Android application. For that, we need to go ahead and open our web browser. So I'm gonna go ahead and open the Firefox. And here I'm gonna go to google.com. Okay, so now here I'm gonna search for Android Volley library. So here let's go ahead and click on the first link that appears here, Volley overview. I'm gonna click on it. So let's wait and see what we can see here, what we can expect. So here you can take a look at the overview of the Volley library. Volley offers the following benefits: automatic scheduling of network requests, multiple concurrent network connections, and so on. Okay, so now let's scroll down here. First, we need to get the Volley library. So here you can see this dependencies block, and inside of it we have this code that starts with implementation. Just select this code here, and let's go back to Android Studio. Open the project navigator, go to the Gradle scripts here, and then go to build.gradle module app. Double click on it. Next, go to the dependencies block here. If you scroll down, you can see the dependencies block, and inside the curly braces of the dependencies block, I'm gonna paste this code, and then I'm gonna click on sync now. I need to sync now so that the library is integrated into my project. So make sure that you have a reliable internet connection here. So the sync was successful. Now let's go into our Java code so we can connect the UI to our Java code. Okay, let's open the project navigator, Alt 1. I'm gonna close the Gradle scripts. I'm gonna go to App, Java, the first package, open it, main activity. So here, I'm gonna define some variables. So let's take a look at our UI and see what are the variables we need to define. We need to define 2 variables of type edit text, 1 variable of type button, another variable of type text view. So let's say edit text. So this is the first variable that we get from the Android.widget here. Next, we need to give it a name. So for the name, I'm gonna say EDT artist name. Okay, so your name you might select a different name for the name of your variable. It doesn't have to be the same as the ID that you defined inside the XML file. So for example, here the EDT artist name is the same as the ID that I defined for my edit text, but you don't have to match these 2 values together. You can have a different name for your edit text, and also a different value for the ID. So we have the EDT artist name and EDT song name, semicolon. So you can see that I have created 2 variables of the same type, edit text. You can do that in Java. You're gonna learn more about this later, but here notice that here we have created 2 variables of the type edit text. The first variable is EDT artist name. The second variable is EDT song name. Okay, let's create the other variable. The other variable is going to be what? It is going to be of type button. And so here, did you see that the button turned into a red color and then it came back to its original color? That's because of the imports that you can see here. Okay, for example, because I have created an edit text from the Android.widget, it must import the edit text from the Android.widget. Otherwise, the Android Studio does not recognize the edit text. So for example, if I remove this import code here, now the edit text is not recognizable, and the Android Studio adds the import automatically. Okay, so now let's give this button a name, btn get lyrics, semicolon, and finally a text view. So again, if I select this text view Android.widget, it will be imported to my file. So the name is going to be txt lyrics, semicolon. Now let's go ahead and initialize these variables inside the onCreate method. Why the onCreate method? Because the onCreate method is the first method that gets called when the application runs. So that is the perfect moment to initialize our variables. So first I am going to initialize the artist name. Assignment operator, find view by ID. The find view by ID allows me to connect this variable to the UI component that I created inside the XML file by using the r.id.edtartistName, semicolon. Next, we've got the EDT song name. So I'm going to say EDT song name, find view by ID, r.id.edt song name, semicolon. The btn get lyrics, find view by ID, r.id.btn get lyrics, semicolon, and the txt lyrics, find view by ID, r.id.txt lyrics, semicolon. So hopefully you are coding with me as you are watching this tutorial, because just watching the tutorial is not going to help you. You have to actually write code in order to learn how to code. So now that the variables are initialized, let's go ahead and take a look at the API that we are going to target. So here it is, the API. this URL api.lyrics.ovh/v1/ the name of the artist. So in this case, this is Rihanna / the name of the song. So in this case, it is Diamonds. Okay. So if I click on JSON input, you can see that this will be the result that you get if you don't have any extension installed on your Chrome web browser. So in order to look at the JSON data in a way that is more readable to you, you can go ahead and go to a Chrome extension store and install a JSON viewer. When you do that and when you open a API like this, it will organize the JSON data for you like this. Okay, so here you can see that we have an opening curly brace followed by a closing curly brace at the bottom here. So this means that we are dealing with a JSON object, and then here it is the lyrics and the value of this lyrics here. So this is the URL that we're gonna use. I'm gonna go ahead and copy this URL, and I'm gonna go to my Android Studio. So I'm gonna create a comment and create this URL here. So comments are a way so that the compiler won't actually execute your code. The compiler will ignore this code if it is commented out. How? By using two forward slashes. So I put two forward slashes here, and the code in front of it is ignored completely by the compiler. The compiler is a software that will run your program, that will evaluate your code for any errors, and then it will run your code, your program. So here it is the URL again, https://api.lyrics.ovh/v1/Rihanna. So this is the name of the artist / diamonds, the name of the song. So let's go ahead and use it. So first and foremost, we need a way to target this URL, and we have already imported the volley library. We have already integrated the volley library into our program. Now I'm gonna create an on-click listener for the button. Okay, so when the button is clicked, it's gonna give me the lyrics. Okay, so first notice that I am still inside the onCreate method, the curly braces of the onCreate method. Let's say btn get lyrics dot set onClick listener. Okay, and then you're gonna learn about this later. Just enter new and then hold down the shift key and enter the V, the uppercase V, and then it's gonna give you this option here. The first option by Android Studio is view.onClickListener and an opening curly brace followed by a closing curly brace and 3 dots inside of it. So this is the option that you should choose, and then press on enter key on your keyboard. So Android Studio magically puts some codes for you here. You're gonna learn about this later and why this code is created. For now, notice that this onClick method is going to be executed whenever the user taps on this button here, give me the lyrics of this song. So in order to prove that this button gets executed whenever it is tapped, I can say toast. So toast is a way to show a message to the user. I'm gonna say toast with capital T that make text, and then we need to pass the context. I'm gonna say get application context, comma, and the text is going to be this button is tapped. So I put the text inside the double quotes, comma, and then I need to define the length or the amount of time the toast is going to be shown to the user. So I'm gonna use length short, okay? Length short. And finally, I need to call the show method on this tow object. So at the end, I'm gonna say dot show. You're gonna learn all about classes and objects later in this course. Don't worry if it sounds a little bit confusing. So now I'm gonna run the program and see what happens when I tap on the button. So I'm gonna open the emulator. So here it is, the application ready. I'm gonna tap on this button, give me the lyrics of this song. Now it's gonna show me this toast message. This button is tapped. If I click on it again, this button is tapped. Okay, so now this is a proof that this onClick method works. Now I'm gonna comment out this toast message by putting 2 forward slashes before the toast. Now, let's see what we are going to do next. So first we need to access the URL, okay? So let's go ahead and here inside the onClick method, I'm gonna define a URL here. The URL comes from the java.net package. I'm gonna select it. URL, these letters are all capitalized. And then I'm gonna name it as URL, assignment operator, and then here we're gonna create a URL out of a string. So I have already put the URL here above, and let me just copy this URL here. Okay, and I'm gonna put it here inside the double quotes. So this is the URL that we are going to target, but instead of the Rihanna as the artist name and the diamonds and the song name, I'm gonna allow the user to select the artist name and the song name. Maybe the user wants to get the lyrics of the song Smooth Criminal by Michael Jackson. Okay, so we need to allow the user to do that. So here I'm gonna remove the song name and the artist name here because now it is a hard-coded string. I'm gonna make it a little bit dynamic, and then I am going to concatenate this string with a plus sign, and I am going to refer to the EDT artist name, and then we are going to call the get text on this artist name, get text, and then we are going to call the toString. Okay, so in this way we get the name of the artist from the edit text, and the edit text gets its value from the input from the user, and then plus, and then 2 double quotes again, slash, okay, plus, and now we need to allow the user to enter the song name. So I'm gonna refer to EDT song name dot get text dot toString semicolon. Okay, so now it is showing me an error. It seems that it's an error, and so this error says that we have created a variable of type URL from the java.net package, but here the value is actually of type string. So here I'm gonna change the type of this URL to string. Okay, so now the compiler knows that we are dealing with a string, a text, right? And then the volley library has a way to convert this string to a URL. Don't worry about that. So for now we have a string variable of type string. Its name is URL, and this value we assigned it to this URL variable. The link and then the artist name, okay, plus slash plus EDT song name dot get text dot toString. Now we need to create a request queue. So let's say request queue. So this is from the volley library. In order to create a request queue and target this API, we need to have a request queue here. Assignment operator, and then in order to initialize it, I'm gonna say volley dot new request queue. Now I need to pass some arguments to this request queue, and I'm gonna pass the context. The context is going to be get application context semicolon. Okay, now I'm gonna say JSON object request. So this JSON object request is created here because I am targeting on an API that contains a JSON object. So that's why we need to create a JSON object request. So this is the type. Let's also give it a name. Let's say JSON object request assignment operator. And now in order to initialize it, I'm gonna actually say new JSON object request. So this syntax that you see here, this is the way that we create a new object in Java. So now I'm gonna actually pass some arguments to the parentheses of this JSON object request. So the first argument that we need to pass is the type of the way that we want to get the data. So for now, we are going to learn about the get data, okay? Now I'm gonna say request, okay? Request dot. And then you say method, request dot method dot get. We also have a post method that you're gonna learn later, but this is the approach that we're gonna use to get the data. And then we are going to pass the URL, which is of type string. I'm gonna pass the URL here, comma. So notice that I get the URL from this variable that we created in line number 43. Next, we need to specify the JSON request. So for this, we are going to pass the null value. Null means nothing. And that's it. Now I am going to create a listener for this JSON request, okay? Because we want to be notified when the response is back, whether we get the lyrics or not. If we get the lyrics, we want to show it to the user. If we don't get it, if we don't get the lyrics, then this means that we are getting an error, and we are going to let the user know that there was an error, and the user might have, for example, entered the wrong name for the artist or the song name, or maybe there was a typo or something like that. So here I'm gonna say new response with capital R, response.listener. Notice that the same one with the curly braces, this is the one that we should choose. I'm gonna press on enter key on my keyboard. Now Android Studio puts some magical lines of code here. You can see that new response.listener inside the angle brackets, the JSON object, parentheses, and the opening curly brace followed by a closing curly brace. And you can see the ending parentheses here, the ending parentheses of this JSON request here after the curly braces. So you can see this onResponse method. The onResponse method is the method that gets called when we get a response back from the server. Okay, so here this is where we get the actual response without any error. Okay, what if we get an actual error? So in that case, if we get an actual error here, first let's put a semicolon after this ending parenthesis here. So now the error should go, but there is still an error, and it says it says that we need to also specify what happens when the error comes. We need to also specify an error listener. So here you can see this ending parenthesis here. Before this ending parenthesis, I'm gonna put a comma, okay, and I'm gonna press on enter key on my keyboard, and I'm gonna say new response dot error listener. Now the error is gone. Okay, so Wally required us to also create an error listener. So when the response was not valid or there was an error, we get notified inside this on error response method. So for now, we want to go inside this on response method, because this is the method that we are interested in for now, because this is the method that we actually get the data from. Okay, but first we want to make sure that there was a response, there was a valid response, and we actually can get the lyrics from the server. So here, in order to get the response, for now, I'm just gonna refer to this txt lyrics.set text, and then I'm gonna refer to this response that we get as an argument, and I'm gonna convert it to a string value, toString. And finally here, before the ending curly brace of this onCreate method, notice that I am still inside the onCreate method, and before this ending curly brace of this onClick method, notice that when I click on each ending curly brace, the Android Studio shows me the method that this ending curly brace is related to. Okay, so before the ending curly brace of this onClick method and after this on error listener here, I'm gonna refer to this request queue, and I'm gonna add what? I'm gonna add the JSON object request. If you don't add this code here, your application won't be able to access the JSON data from the server. So this is very important. Request queue.add JSON object request. So this this line of code must be added after the new response.error listener, after this block of code and before the ending curly brace of this onClick method. Okay, so you're going to learn all about methods later too. So that's it. Now I'm going to go ahead and run the program and see how this works. Okay, so it says please enter the artist name. So the artist name, so let's choose Adele as the artist name. And the song name I'm interested in, come on, Skyfall. Skyfall. Okay. For now, please only enter the artist name and the song name that I enter here if you want to test it on your own emulator or Android device, and because there is still some more to do with our code, so it becomes a complete application. Okay, the artist name is Adele and the song name is Skyfall. So let me click on this, give me the lyrics of this song and see what happens. So let me disappear the keyboard. As you can see, nothing happened. Why? Because we did not ask the permission to connect to the internet inside the manifest file. So go to the project navigator, go to the app, Android manifest.xml file. Inside the manifest tag, we need to add the permission. Just open a tag and type in here users permission, internet. Okay. I'm gonna select the internet permission, done. Let's run the program and see the result. So now it should be able to get the lyrics. If not, we are going to debug the application again. So I'm gonna say Adele as the name of the artist, and the song name is going to be Skyfall. And let's click on this button to give me the lyrics. So now it should give us a string representation of the response. So let me click on this button again. As you can see, again, nothing happens. So now we should be able to get the response, but it doesn't show us the response. So let's go back here. Maybe there is something wrong with our code here. Edit artist name, edit song name. Let's go back to the activity underline main.xml. So the first name is the first one. The first edit text is edit artist name. Make sure the ID is correct. Make sure the ID of the second one is correct. The btn get lyrics and the txt lyrics. Okay, so far so good. So let me click on the constraint layouts. Maybe I have accidentally set an ID for the layouts. So everything is fine. Let's go back to the main activity. So let's check our code again. We have the edit text, the button, the text view. Everything is fine. We have initialized our UI components inside the onCreate method. So now let's take a look at the URL. So the URL seems to be fine. So let me copy this URL here and let me go back to the Firefox. I'm gonna enter this URL here. I'm gonna, okay, so the artist name was Adele slash, and the song name was Skyfall. So I'm gonna press on enter key on my keyboard. So as you can see, I can get the data here. I can get the lyrics. So the URL seems to be fine. I am first accessing the EDT artist name and then the EDT song name. So there is nothing wrong with with our edit texts. For this request queue, the volley, the new request queue. So instead of get application context here, let me delete it and just refer to main activity.this. Okay, maybe this was the cause of the error. So far so good. Let me go ahead and run the program now and see whether the problem was with that context. So let's enter the artist name Adele, and the song name was Skyfall. I'm gonna click on give me the lyrics of this song, and I'm gonna disappear this keyboard. So nothing happens. So at this point, I'm gonna create a breakpoint. A breakpoint is a way to actually control the flow of the program. So I'm gonna create a breakpoint in this line of code that where the onClick method starts here at this left sidebar. If I click on it here, a breakpoint is created and this line of code turns to red. And at the top, instead of running a program, I'm gonna click on this bug icon here. It says debug app. I'm gonna click on it. Now if I show you the emulator, now it gets into the debugger, okay? Because our application has a bug, and in order to be able to debug your application, we need to be able to control the flow of the program. So let's wait and see how it happens. Notice that the onClick method only gets executed when I tap on the button. So now it's gonna open the application for me, and when I tap on this button, the application goes into debug mode. First, let me enter the artist name. So now let me enter the song name, which is going to be Skyfall. So the emulator is a little bit slow here. Skyfall. And now I'm gonna click on the give me the lyrics of this song. Just click on this button. Now the application should go into the debug mode. Now a new area is opened at the bottom. This is called the debug here. You can see that the debug is highlighted at the bottom. So here it's gonna give us some information. So now you can see that we have some buttons here. The first one is the step over, or the shortcut is F8. I'm gonna click on this step over in order to execute this onClick method here. So now you can see that the URL is fine. There is a value assigned to this URL. Now it's gonna create the request queue. I'm gonna execute this code. So when I try to execute the request queue, the flow of the program goes at the bottom of the curly brace of this onClick method. Okay, it did not execute the codes inside of our of our onClick method. So it seems to be that there is something wrong here, and notice that the request queue, it has a value, it is not null, the URL is fine, the JSON object request here. So let me open the JSON object request and see whether we get any data or not. So the JSON object request, it has some data too, and it seems to be normal. Okay, so it should give us some information about the response. But now I'm gonna just remove this breakpoint and create a breakpoint for this on response here. Okay, I'm gonna click on this bug icon here, the debug app button at the top. So let me wait. So the application goes into debug mode. And now we need to enter the artist name and the song name again. So let's enter the artist name here. So the artist name and the song name is entered, and I'm gonna click on this button, give me the lyrics of the song, and you can see that nothing happens. It seems that the onResponse is not called at all. So the problem is something else. So what was the problem? Well, after spending about 3 to 5 hours trying to figure out what was the issue, I found out that my SDK packages were not updated. So let's go ahead and close this project, okay? I'm gonna go to File at the top, and then I'm gonna close project. Or if you are using Mac, you can simply tap on this X button at the top right corner, and then it will close the project. So it says, do you want to terminate the process app? It's from the Android emulator. I'm gonna click on yes, terminate. So now here it is, my Android Studio wizard. Now here it is what I did in order to solve this issue. I went to configure, and I went to check for updates, okay? Check for updates, and I allowed the Android Studio to check for any updates, and that's what it is doing right now. And then I updated all of my SDK packages. If there was an update, I did that too. So here, notice that there is an update. There is a new update for the Android SDK platform tools. Okay, I'm gonna do that now because it's very important. Whenever you start the Android Studio, before opening any projects or starting a new project, make sure that your Android SDK packages are all updated. So I'm gonna go click on Update Now. So you, as the developer, should always expect an unexpected thing to happen. Okay, always expect that. So now let's go ahead. You can see that the requested components are installed. Now let's go ahead and click on Finish. So now it's done. Okay, now I'm gonna go to Configure again, and I'm gonna go to SDK Manager. So it's gonna open the settings of the application. The Android SDK is opened. Okay, appearance and behavior, system settings, Android SDK. And here, make sure to check this show package details. You can see that in this course, as I'm updating the course, it's gonna target the Android 10, Android Q. So these are the packages that are installed. And here we have 2 more tabs. If you click on this SDK Tools tab, you can see that it is showing me the SDK packages that need to be updated. So it says, let's say, Android SDK Build Tools, there is an update available for this tool. So I can check this checkbox beside this Android SDK Build Tools, okay? And I can go ahead and click on Apply. So notice that there are some other packages that are checked here. You can check this Show Package Details to take a look at the details of these packages. And here below the status, you can make sure that all of these packages are actually updated. So these are the packages that are installed on my computer. So here I'm going to click on Apply, and it's going to download the Android SDK Build Tools. So I don't know what happened to the previous download, because I think I have already done that. So let me click on Next. So now it's gonna download 70 megabytes. So this is related to the build tools. Maybe this is another package. Maybe this is a new update. So I'm gonna wait on this until this package is updated, and then I'm gonna go ahead and open the Lyrics Finder app. Okay, now it's done. Let's click on Finish. Okay, now I'm gonna go ahead and click on OK. So now my Android Studio is ready. But what was the problem with our Lyrics Finder app? The problem was actually the emulator. The emulator was not updated. So here you can see that if you go to Android SDK Manager and click on SDK Tools, here we have a new package, Android Emulator. Make sure that your emulator is always updated to the latest version. So make sure that when you check this checkbox, the Android Emulator checkbox, under the status it says installed. If there is a new update available, make sure to update it. Okay, let's go back to the Android Studio Wizard. I'm gonna click on Lyrics Finder app from here, or you can just click on open an existing Android Studio project and then navigate to the path of your project and open your project. So I'm gonna select the Lyrics Finder app from here. Okay, so now the project is ready. Okay, so here let's take a look at our variables that I created here, the edit text, for entering the text or to getting the input from the user, the button, the text view. Next we've got the onCreate method. Here we have initialized our variables, the onClick listener for the btn get lyrics, okay, and also we have this set onClick listener that you can see for this button when it is tapped. The URL, here I have created a URL from this string here, https://api.lyrics.ovh/v1/ edt artist name. So first we are going to get the artist name plus slash edt song name dot get text dot toString, and then we have created a request queue for our Volley library, because if you want to start the Volley library in order to request something from the internet, you have to first create a request queue. So this is how you create the request queue. First, volley.new request queue, and then you pass the context main activity.this. Next, we have the JSON object request, JSON object request new, JSON object request, and then the request method is get. We pass the URL here. For the JSON request, we pass null, and then we have the response, a new response.listener, and then here we have the onResponse method. So if we get the response from the internet successfully, the onResponse method is called, and then here we are setting the text of the txt lyrics to be response.toString, a string representation of the response that get from the JSON. So now we also have this new response.error listener. So if an error happens, if something goes wrong, then this method onError response will be called, and we get this error from this method. So we can do something about it. And finally, we must add the JSON object request that we created here to this request queue. So I said request queue.add JSON object request, and that's it. So now let's go ahead and run the program and see what happens here. So notice that I have created a new Android virtual device, and let me show you how I created this. Just click on this create virtual device. I selected the phone, I selected the Pixel XL. This is a good emulator, and I just tapped on the next. I chose the Android system image, the Q, the Android Q, because I want to test my Android apps on Android Q. And then I clicked on next, and then I clicked on finish. Okay, so this is how I created my emulator. Let me show you the emulator. So now my emulator is ready. Let's go ahead and test our app on this emulator. So now I'm gonna enter the artist name. I'm gonna say Adele as the artist name, and the song is going to be Skyfall. So let's click on give me the lyrics of this song. So now it should give us the lyrics. You can see that now it works fine without any problem. And because I already have a scroll view set up, I can scroll here and see the value. So you can see that we have the JSON response here, and this is the actual lyrics, right? This is the end and go on. But it's not user friendly. Okay, we have to turn this into a user-friendly text so the user can see exactly what is this. For now, it's just a JSON object response. Now we are showing only a JSON object to the user, not the actual lyric. But let's go back and see how we can solve this problem. So just go inside the onResponse method, and here notice that we are setting the text of this text view to be response.toString, the JSON object, and we are seeing the result here, right? Here it is, the result. Okay, and this is a JSON object, and it has a key, lyrics, and the lyrics is of type string, and also the value, the actual lyrics is also of type string. Notice the quote here, the opening quote, and also if you scroll down here, you can see the ending quote here. This means that the actual lyric that we get from the server is of type string. So now here, instead of getting the actual JSON object and then turn it into a string representation so the user can see it, how about getting the lyrics from the lyrics key? This lyrics that you can see here is a key, okay? And we are getting the JSON object from the onResponse method. And this opening curly brace and this ending curly brace is actually the JSON object. The lyrics is the key, and the value is the actual value of the lyrics of this song. So I have access to the JSON object, this opening curly brace and the closing curly brace. So now I want to access the value of the key lyrics. So how can I do that? You can say response dot get string. So notice that JSON objects have these methods. For example, if the value is of type double, integer, or any of these types, you can do that. But in this case, the value is of type string. So that's why I'm going to call get string. Now we need to pass the key. What is the key? Let me show you the key. The key is the lyrics, this actual value here. You must pass the exact key here because it's case sensitive. You cannot enter lyrics with capital L here as the key. You must enter the exact key. So I'm gonna put lyrics here. That's it, done. So I'm gonna make sure that I have entered the correct key, lyrics, and now it's fine. So here it's showing us an error and it says unhandled exception. So I'll talk more about exception handling later in this course, but exceptions simply means that this code might generate error because at some point the user's internet connection might go out of control, or the user's internet connection might actually generate some errors, and it might get completely offline. Okay, so in that case, if your app tries to connect to the internet and the user's internet is offline, then your application may crash. That's why Android and Java, they have provided us with exception handling. So if something goes wrong, we can handle that exception, and then we can allow the user know that something went wrong because of this error, because of, let's say, internet connection going offline or something like that. So here, how can I create a exception handling? Here I can say try, and then put an opening curly brace followed by a closing curly brace. After the ending curly brace of the try, this try block, I'm gonna say catch. Okay, so let's see what is the error that we are trying to catch. So if I hover over this error area, this underlined red color under this get string, it's gonna show us what is the exception that might happen. Let's take a look at the unhandled exception. It says org.json.json exception. So inside the parenthesis of the catch, I'm gonna enter JSON exception. This is how I find out what is the exception that might be thrown. And then I give it a name because this is just a parameter. And I'm gonna open and close this catch block. Okay, so now it is showing us an error here, JSON exception. Okay, so here it says that the exception is not thrown because I have not put this code inside the try block. So go ahead and highlight this code, txt lyrics.setText response.getString lyrics, and then cut it and paste it here inside the try block. Now the error is gone. And now the catch statement knows that the exception is thrown inside the try block. So if anything goes wrong, the catch block catches that error and then we can show a message to the user, or we can simply show a message to the logcat. We can say e.print stack trace or something like that. You're going to learn more about exception handling later in this course, so don't worry. Okay, now the error is gone, everything is fine. Okay, now I catch the JSON object. So here make sure that inside the parenthesis of this onResponse method, if here it doesn't say JSON object, and if it is actually object, you can change it to JSON object. Okay, and now it's time to run our application and see the result of our hard work. So let me open the emulator. So there is still some more work to do, but for now I'm gonna enter, let's say, Adele, and the name of the song is Hello. I'm gonna click on give me the lyrics of this song. Okay, fine. So you can see that now it is showing us a very user-friendly lyrics, and it's pretty good. Hello, it's me, and that's it. I can scroll down here and see the entire lyrics. It's pretty amazing. Later you will learn that you can add a simple media player at the top right, and you can play the song, or you can allow the user to open the Google player and then select the song, and then they can come back here and take a look at the lyrics of the song. It's pretty amazing. So this is how it works, but there is a problem here. What if I enter Michael Jackson as the artist name? Notice that Michael Jackson name, it's a name with two parts: Michael space Jackson. So because of this space, we might face some problems because of the reasons that I'm gonna tell you about now. So let's say the name of the artist is Michael Jackson, and the name of the song that I am going to access is, let's say, Beat It. Okay, now if I click on this give me the lyrics of the song, let's see what happens. So you can see nothing happened, and we got actually error from the JSON response. I'm sure that this part, the error listener on error response is called, but you can see that nothing has happened on the device. What is the actual problem? Okay, so I'm gonna let you know that this is a simple challenge for you. Go ahead, pause the video, search on the internet about the spaces in your URLs. Okay, and how you can handle that for the JSON response. Pause the video, go ahead and do your search, and when you are done with the challenge, come back and play the video again, and I'm going to show you how to solve this problem together. So let's go back to our website, our web browser. I entered this URL. So this is the song of the Adele, Skyfall. So now I'm going to change the artist name to, let's say, Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson. Okay, now let's change the artist the song name to Beat It. Okay, notice that there is a space between the Michael and Jackson here, and there is also a space between Beat and It. Now I'm gonna execute this code, this URL, and I'm gonna let you know what happens here. On the website, it's perfectly fine. It's gonna give us the lyrics of this song, but notice what happened here. Okay, it's gonna put 20% between the space. So here it's not showing us that it's not showing us this character, the 20%, but it is actually there. Okay, so the way to solve this problem is to go back to Android Studio here. And here, when we are dealing with the URL, after creating the URL here, I'm going to do something here. I'm going to say URL dot replace. Okay, we are going to replace something with another thing. Replace the empty character with comma 20%. This is how it's done in web browsers. So now if I go ahead, notice that because of this line of code, the problem will be solved. So let me put a semicolon here at the end of my code. url.replace. The target is empty space. If there is an empty space, replace it with 20%, this value. This is how it's done in web browsers. So now let's go ahead and run the program. Now, if I enter an artist name that there is a space between the let's say first name and the last name, and also a space between the song name, then it will be solved because the empty space will be replaced by 20%. Let me show you the emulator. Now let's go ahead and say Michael Jackson, and I want to access the lyrics of the beated song. I'm gonna click on give me the lyrics of this song. Now it's gonna show us the result. That's it. Okay, I can easily scroll and get the whole lyrics. So let's choose another artist. Let's say, so for the artist name, let's choose Zara Larsson. Okay, and for the song name, I'm gonna choose Invisible. Okay, so notice that the song name or the artist name is not case sensitive here. So for example, you could enter the Zara Larsson all in lowercase letters, or the Invisible here also. So here I'm gonna click on give me the lyrics of this song. Now it should give me the lyrics. So that's it. Okay, here are the lyrics of this song, and that's it. Congratulations, you have created your own lyrics finder app, and I'll see you in the next tutorial.